This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for another music art conversation presented by EMKT PR. And I want to thank Beatrice for sending Magali to us today, because not only is she a performer, she is an artist. And I love what I read about things, Magali, that you sort of like combine the art and your music and your movement into your presentation. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into this, and what made you decide that, it wasn't just enough to write music and perform music, but there's a little bit more that goes with it?
Well, I started making music when I was 19. I really wanted to sing and produce my own songs, but I didn't have the means to access all of the instruments I wanted to use. So I started doing digital music production. Um, and I found out I really liked that and continued on with that, learning more about electronic genres. And when I started working on whole projects, like my first EP and the first album, I wanted to have visuals along with it. And the digital sound aesthetic kind of transferred into the visual aesthetic. And yeah, from there, I started to find artists through Instagram who were digital artists. And um, that was great to collab with people, and I still do all the time. But I also I got really interested in how they made it, and I wanted to learn how to make it myself as well. And that's how I changed over and added the visual
I love that.
arts aspect.
So I also understand you're working on your master's in visual arts. So
Yeah.
where do you have time to put all this together and perform and be the artist you are?
I just I just do. I don't know. I try. Yeah, I don't I mean, I love what I do, so I don't feel, I mean, I try to take breaks sometimes. Like maybe I'll take a half day on the weekend, on Sunday or something. But most days I'm just working on all my projects and enjoying it. It's really frustrating and effortful, but um, frustrating at times and always requires a lot of effort. But um, I love it. Yeah.
Well, they say that even when when you do something that you love, even with all that effort, it's so worthwhile,
Yeah.
because it's what you want to do. And it's not that you're being made to do it. And there's a huge difference there. And not everybody has that opportunity, or there are a lot of people who don't think they have that opportunity. But amongst everything that you're doing, you're finding those spaces where you can take that break, but also do the work that you love.
Mhm.
So you said you sort of started this at 19. Before 19, what did you think you wanted to do? Because, they usually say that, you know, young artists sort of know when they're much younger, because they've been either singing in choirs or they've been um, dabbling with writing their own songs. So did you know anything before 19 that maybe this is the path you were going to go in?
Well, I was always interested in art. I think as a really young child, maybe 6, 7, 8, I wanted to do music. Um, and then I know when I was 9 years old, I started to play around with makeup. And then for many years, I wanted to be a makeup artist, which kind of transitioned into also like fashion, but
Sure.
mostly makeup. Yeah. And then I think when I was like 17, I got interested in makeup for film and then film, like working on film sets. So I actually went to school. I entered school with my major in film. Um, and then when I was 19, I kind of added music onto that. Yeah.
So you've always had that artistic flair. and you sort of
Mhm.
knew that you wanted to be somewhere in this industry. You were just trying to find your footing. And,
Yeah.
that's not unusual. In fact, even now that you're finding your footing, I can almost guarantee you in 5 to 10 years, we're going to see even a different side
Yeah.
as your knowledge continues. So, the information I have here from EMPKT is, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right, it's Magali occult. Can you
Mhm.
explain that to me? Because when people hear the word cult, they sort of like back away. So give us a little
Yeah.
more information.
Um, the name came about because the original idea was using different voices to sing, and there would be like distinct different characters in my music, which I didn't end up going with because I didn't like how it sounded. But the cult idea was um, like all the different characters that someone has within themselves, and all of those different personalities that we all have make up who you are. So, like, Magali occult, I'm not just the one personality you see, it's like multiple different personalities. Um, Not in like a dissociative type of way, but everyone has that. Like you
Right.
have that, you know. Yeah.
And, I'm glad that you explained it that way because, and for our listeners to totally understand that none of us are just one dimensional. We have so many other parts in ourselves. Sometimes we don't allow them to come out. We keep them hidden because either we think that they're not good enough to come out or people won't understand. Uh, but I certainly have found that over the years, there are bits and pieces of me that come out at times, and it's like, yeah, I know that part of Karen. And
Yeah.
you know, it's it's great, and especially when you can put it into your music and into your art so people get to see that. So from what I also understand is besides living here in the US, you've lived in Hong Kong and Belgium. So give us a little bit of background
Yeah.
about those two parts of the world.
I was born in Hong Kong and I lived there until I was 9. But we didn't live in the city. I lived Hong Kong is like a bunch of islands, and we lived on this in this really small island beach town. Um, so it was a very calm and like natural childhood. And then I moved to Brussels, which is a city and it's colder. And I grew up mostly in Brussels. Um, yeah, and then when I was 18, I went back to Hong Kong for a year and then came to New York.
So you've had a combination of different types of lifestyles that you've had to get used to, so to speak, because coming from a very calm island to a hustling, bustling city like Brussels, and of
Yeah.
course, New York City is probably one of the fastest moving cities around.
Mhm.
So again, let's going back to your art. Are you using mostly digital art right now with your music?
Yeah. I produce everything digitally, uh, besides my voice. Occasionally, there's some songs where there's guitar on it, but most of the instruments are MIDI instruments, so like digitally constructed. And yeah, most of the visuals are also 3D modeled. Um, and yeah, the album cover I think will be photographed, but so far all the artwork for the album has been 3D modeling, 3D animation. Yeah.
So you were born at the right time of life with the
Mhm.
digital um, market just growing and so many new ways of doing things. And when you talk about 3D modeling, it's interesting because um, my past career was in IT. And I remember back
Mhm.
in the 90s when they were talking about 3D modeling, I just sort of looked at them and like, "No, that's not going to happen." And
Yeah.
wow, the difference that I've seen in the computer industry as well. So tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about this album that's coming out.
It's called The Lady, the Swallow, the Sorceress, and it's a 13-track album. And yeah, I think it's electronic pop, but really taking from electronic dance music and techno and drum and bass sort of rhythms, um, and mixing that in with more pop harmonies. And I wrote a story to go with it. And yeah, it's the album, and then it's the short story, and all the visuals that are going to come with it. There's already some 3D animated music videos. I think I'm going to do a short film and then a VR experience as well. Um, so, because it's like a world that the character exists in, and I want to build that in a VR experience.
How
Yeah.
interesting that will be.
Mhm.
My son was just visiting this past week. He's in his early 30s and he went to an event here in the Cleveland area. And it's the first time he experienced VR. And he
Oh
said,
wow.
you know, he is so into animation, but yet never had this experience before. And he said it was so amazing. He said, Mom, you have to try this. He said, because you just are transported into another world.
Yeah.
So you are doing a little bit of everything. Most people, they'll say, oh, I have a talent to vocalize, or I have a talent to do art, or I have a talent to dance. But you seem to have just a little bit of everything and you're putting it all together. Are you
Mhm.
producing everything on your own as well?
Yeah.
So you
I
are,
have one.
yeah,
There's one person I'm working with now in the studio to record the vocals, because normally I would record them myself also, but now I'm recording them with someone. Yeah.
so you're basically a one-woman show. I love it.
Yeah.
That is terrific. You have to depend on yourself to make sure that you get up in the morning and get the work done.
Yeah.
So tell us the name of the album so our listeners can go out and look for it and listen to it. And
It's called The Lady, the Swallow, the Sorceress, and it's coming out on February 3rd. But there's already some singles out. The last single that just dropped is called Listen, parentheses, Secret Place, that dropped on Friday the 13th that just passed. There's the song Come With Me that's out, and the song It Is the End that's out also.
and they can find that all on just about all the
Oh,
streaming
yeah,
platforms out there.
yeah,
And do you have a website that our listeners can follow
I
you on?
do. It's magaliacult.com, MAGALIACULT.com. And that has my Instagram and my Spotify as well. And yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure all of our listeners follow you, go out and listen to what
Yeah.
you already have dropped, but then be ready for the album that will come out in February of 2024, which is
Mhm.
only 5 months away, which doesn't seem possible. We're that close to a new year.
Mhm.
So just to wrap this up, you're taking your master's in visual arts. How close are you to wrapping that up?
I just started, so I still
Okay.
have a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we know, time does fly when you're enjoying what
Yeah.
you're doing, and it sounds like you certainly do. I've listened to your music. I am overwhelmed. I think it is beautiful. Now that I know there's a real storyline, I'm going to go back and listen again to see if I can follow it. And we're going to make sure that all of our listeners know about Magali Occult. And I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye bye now.
You too. Bye.